I want to start by saying something that might sound strange. If you're watching this, drop your location in the comments below. I'm curious to know where stories like mine resonate, because what I'm about to tell you happened right here in Portland, Oregon, and it changed everything I thought I knew about the people closest to me. 300 people filled the grand ballroom at the Sentinel Hotel that night. My wife, Margaret, and I had been married for 50 years, and our 3 children had insisted on throwing us this golden anniversary party. The chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting warm light across faces I'd known for decades, colleagues from my 35 years as a high school principal, former students who were now teachers themselves, neighbors, friends, family. Everyone who mattered was there. Everyone except the person I thought I knew best. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to 6 months earlier, when I first started noticing the changes in my son-in-law, Patrick. Patrick had married my youngest daughter, Lisa, 8 years ago. He was a financial advisor, charming, always knew the right thing to say. At family dinners, he'd ask thoughtful questions about my work, remembered details about Margaret's garden, bought thoughtful gifts for birthdays. The perfect son-in-law, or so I thought. The first crack appeared last March. I was at their house helping Lisa paint the nursery they were expecting their first child, my first grandchild. Patrick came home early, and I overheard him on the phone in the hallway. His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "No, the old man's not going to be a problem. Trust me, I've got it handled. Once the paperwork goes through, we're looking at close to 4 million, easy." I froze with my paintbrush mid-stroke. Old man? 4 million? Margaret and I weren't wealthy by Silicon Valley standards, but we'd been careful. The pension from my principal years, some smart investments, the house we'd bought in 1978 that was now worth a small fortune. We'd always planned to leave it all to our 3 children equally. We'd even had the estate attorney draw up a simple will 2 years ago. But 4 million? That was almost our entire estate. I told myself I'd misheard. Financial advisors talk about millions all the time. It was probably a client. Then came the second incident in May. Margaret and I were having dinner at Lisa and Patrick's house. Lisa was 7 months pregnant by then, glowing despite the discomfort. Patrick poured wine for everyone except Lisa, and as he handed me my glass, I noticed his hand trembling slightly. His eyes met mine for just a second, and there was something there, something cold that vanished so quickly I wondered if I'd imagined it. "Dad," Patrick said, settling into his chair. "Lisa and I were talking. Have you and Mom thought about updating your estate plan? With the baby coming, there might be some tax advantages to setting up a trust structure now." Margaret beamed. "How thoughtful. You're always looking out for us, Patrick." But something in my gut twisted. "Our attorney's got everything handled," I said carefully. "Pretty straightforward split between you 3 kids." Patrick's smile didn't waver, but his knuckles whitened around his wine glass. "Of course. I just meant, with modern estate planning, there are ways to minimize tax burden. I could connect you with a specialist I know. No charge. Consider it a family favor." "That's generous," I said, "but we're happy with our current arrangement." The temperature at the table seemed to drop 10 degrees. After that dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling. Maybe it was 35 years of dealing with teenagers that had honed my instincts for when something was off. I'd seen countless kids try to manipulate their way out of trouble, and Patrick's behavior had started to ping those same internal alarms. I did something I'm not proud of. I called an old friend from my years as principal. Tom had gone on to work in private investigation. I asked him to do a background check on Patrick. What Tom found made my blood run cold. Patrick wasn't just a financial advisor. 3 years ago, he'd been quietly fired from a major investment firm for irregularities in client accounts. Nothing criminal was ever charged, but the whispers were there. He'd opened his own practice after that, but Tom found forums where former clients complained about aggressive tactics, questionable investment vehicles, and difficulty getting their money back. And there was more. Patrick's mother, Diane, had worked as a paralegal for an estate attorney before retiring. Together, they had a particular expertise that made my stomach turn: elder estate planning. I sat in my home office staring at Tom's report, my hands shaking. My daughter was about to have a baby with this man. My daughter, who'd been distant lately, who'd stopped calling as often, who'd started saying things like, "Patrick thinks we should focus on our own little family now, and Patrick says you and Mom baby Margaret too much." Classic isolation tactics. I'd seen it before abusive boyfriends cutting their partners off from family. But Patrick wasn't abusive, not in any obvious way. He was just repositioning the pieces on the board. I made a decision then. I wasn't going to confront anyone. I wasn't going to cause drama that might drive Lisa further away. I was going to watch, wait, and document. I upgraded the security system at our house, including cameras in the living room and kitchen. I told Margaret it was because of a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. She didn't question it. Then came the anniversary party planning. "We want to do something really special," Lisa said when she called in August. She was 8 months pregnant, her due date just 2 weeks after our anniversary. "Dad, you and Mom have been such an inspiration. 50 years! We want to celebrate that." "Sweetheart, that's sweet, but you should be resting. The baby, Patrick's handling everything. He's already booked the Sentinel Hotel. 300 guests, Dad. Everyone you've touched over the years. Former students are flying in from across the country. It's going to be magical." Something in her voice sounded rehearsed. "Lisa, that's too much. We'd be just as happy with something small." "Dad," her voice turned sharp, "Patrick and I want to do this. Please don't fight us on it. We're trying to honor you." I agreed. What else could I do? But I also called Tom again. "I need you at the party," I told him. "I need eyes." The weeks leading up to the anniversary were strange. Patrick was suddenly everywhere, suddenly helpful. He insisted on being the one to pick up my tuxedo for alterations. He volunteered to handle the seating chart. He wanted to coordinate with our estate attorney, just to make sure if anyone asks about your legacy, we have talking points prepared, he said with that perfect smile. I declined on the attorney. "I'll handle my own affairs, Patrick, but thanks." His jaw tightened for just a moment. Then the smile was back. "Of course, just trying to help." 2 weeks before the party, Lisa gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. They named her Emma. When I held my granddaughter for the first time in the hospital, tears streaming down my face, I looked up to see Patrick watching me from the doorway. There was something calculating in his expression, something that disappeared the moment he realized I'd noticed. "Isn't she perfect?" he said, walking over. "Emma's going to have such a wonderful life. Thanks to her grandparents' generosity, of course." That's when I knew. Whatever was coming, it was coming at the party. I called Tom. "I need more than surveillance. I need you to bring equipment. I need to be able to record whatever happens." "What are you expecting?" Tom asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "But my gut tells me Patrick's going to make a move. Something public. Something where I'll be too proud to make a scene." Tom was quiet for a moment. "You think he's going to try to coerce you into signing something? In front of all those people?" "Maybe. Or worse." I paused, the thought forming even as I spoke it. "Tom, what if he tries to make me look incompetent? Confused? Not in my right mind? Jesus, Richard. If he gets you declared mentally incompetent with his connections and his mother's legal background, he could petition to become my conservator. Maybe Margaret too, if he plays it right. Control everything. That's a hell of an accusation." "I know. That's why I need proof before I do anything." Tom set me up with a small recording device, no bigger than a shirt button. It would capture audio in a 15-foot radius. I also had a backup plan. I'd instructed my attorney to attend the party, though I didn't tell Patrick or Lisa. If anything went wrong, I wanted a legal witness. The night of the party arrived. Margaret looked radiant in her gold dress, matching the gold theme the kids had chosen. At 71, she was still the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. As we drove to the Sentinel Hotel, she squeezed my hand. "Can you believe it's been 50 years?" she said softly. "Best 50 years of my life," I told her, and meant it. If only I'd known what the next 3 hours would bring. We arrived at 7. The ballroom was transformed gold and white everywhere. Photos of us throughout the decades displayed on tables around the room. Our wedding photo from 1974. Pictures of our 3 kids growing up. Margaret and me at various school events over my career. It was beautiful. Too beautiful, maybe. Too perfect. Patrick approached immediately, looking sharp in his tuxedo. Lisa was beside him in a stunning dress, baby Emma sleeping in her arms. My daughter hugged me tight. "Happy anniversary, Daddy," she whispered. I wanted to hold on to that moment. My daughter, my granddaughter, 50 years of marriage. I wanted everything to be exactly as it seemed, but I'd learned long ago that things rarely are. The evening progressed normally at first. Former colleagues and students came up to share stories. Old neighbors reminisced. Margaret cried happy tears at least a dozen times. Dinner was served prime rib, Margaret's favorite. The speeches began. Our oldest son, Michael, went first, telling funny stories about growing up. Then our middle daughter, Jennifer, sharing what she'd learned from our marriage. Both speeches were heartfelt and genuine. Then Patrick stood up. "I'd like to say a few words," he announced, his voice carrying across the room. "Not as a son, but as someone who's had the privilege of knowing Richard and Margaret for 8 years now." Margaret beamed. I felt every muscle in my body tense. Patrick spoke eloquently about marriage, about legacy, about the example we'd set. The crowd was rapt. Then he pivoted. "Richard, you've dedicated your life to shaping young minds as an educator. But what many people don't know is how generous you and Margaret have been in planning for your family's future. It's actually something I've been honored to help with in my capacity as a financial advisor." Murmurs through the crowd. I hadn't told anyone Patrick was involved in our finances. Because he wasn't. Which is why, Patrick continued, pulling a small envelope from his jacket pocket, I wanted to do something special tonight. Richard, Margaret, Lisa, and I have been working with my mother, who has experience in estate planning, to set up a more efficient structure for your legacy. We wanted to present you with the preliminary documents tonight, in front of all these people who love you, so you can see how much thought and care has gone into protecting everything you've built. He held out the envelope toward me. The room waited. I didn't move. Patrick's smile tightened. "Dad, it's just preliminary paperwork. We can review it together." "I don't think so," I said quietly. You could hear a pin drop in that ballroom. Patrick's expression didn't change, but his eyes went hard. "I'm sorry?" I stood up slowly. Every eye in the room was on me. "Patrick, I appreciate the thought, but Margaret and I already have an estate plan. We're not looking to change it." "Dad, don't be stubborn." This from Lisa, her voice sharp. "Patrick's been working on this for months. His mother, too. They're trying to help you." Months. They'd been planning this for months. I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. When had she become a stranger? "Lisa," I said gently, "your mother and I don't need help with our estate. Everything's already arranged." Patrick's mask was slipping now. "With all due respect, Richard, you're 73 years old. The estate planning landscape has changed dramatically. What you set up 2 years ago might not be optimal anymore. I'm talking about potentially saving hundreds of thousands in taxes. Don't you want that for your children? For Emma?" He was using my granddaughter as leverage. In front of 300 people. "What I want," I said clearly, "is to enjoy my anniversary dinner without discussing business." "This isn't appropriate, Patrick." "Not appropriate?" Patrick's voice rose slightly. "I've spent hundreds of hours on this. My mother has provided her expertise free of charge. We're trying to help you, and you won't even look at the documents?" Someone in the crowd whispered. The atmosphere had shifted from celebratory to uncomfortable. Margaret reached for my hand, confused. "Richard, maybe we should just look at what they've prepared. Patrick's family now. He wouldn't steer us wrong." That was the moment I saw it. Patrick's hand moving to his pocket, pulling out a small vial. In the confusion and tension, no one else noticed. But I'd been watching him all night. He turned toward the waiter's station, where champagne glasses were lined up for the toast. The toast that was supposed to come next, where Patrick would hand Margaret and me our glasses personally, as was traditional for the person giving the toast. My 35 years of reading teenage behavior patterns kicked in. I saw it play out before it happened. Patrick would doctor our champagne. Maybe just mine. Maybe both. Something that would make me seem confused, disoriented, unable to think clearly. And then, In front of 300 witnesses, I'd appear exactly as he'd been suggesting, an old man who needed help, who wasn't competent to make his own decisions. From there, it would be easy. His mother, the paralegal, would have documents ready. Emergency guardianship papers. Maybe citing evidence of declining mental capacity. For your own protection, Richard, you clearly aren't thinking straight. And Lisa, my own daughter, would support him. I could see it in her face. She believed in him. Or she'd been manipulated so thoroughly that it didn't matter. I made a split-second decision. "You know what, Patrick?" I said loudly. "You're right. I'm sorry. Let me look at those documents." I moved toward him, stumbling slightly, catching myself on the table. Years of dealing with students had made me a better actor than I'd realized. Patrick's relief was palpable. Of course. Here he handed me the envelope, turning back toward the champagne glasses. I watched him in my peripheral vision as I pretended to read. His hand moved fast and practiced. Something went into 2 glasses, which he marked with a barely noticeable fingerprint on the stems. Then he turned back to me with a warm smile. "How about we discuss this properly after the toast?" he suggested. "Let's celebrate first." "Great idea," I agreed. I handed the envelope to Margaret. "Honey, hold on to this for me." Patrick moved to the champagne glasses. He picked up the 2 marked ones, carrying them carefully. "Richard, Margaret, these are for you. Happy 50th anniversary." He extended the glasses toward us. Time seemed to slow down. I reached for my glass, but my hand was shaking, genuinely shaking now, because I knew what I was about to do would blow up everything. I'd lose Lisa. Maybe I'd lose my granddaughter. But I couldn't let this happen. My hand bumped Patrick's wrist. Both glasses tilted, and I overcorrected, grabbing for them. In the confusion, I managed to turn around, my body blocking the view of most guests. When I turned back, I'd switched the glasses in my hands. The doctored champagne was now in my left hand, the clean glass in my right. "Sorry," I muttered. "These old hands aren't what they used to be." Patrick's face had gone pale. He was staring at the glasses, trying to figure out if I'd done what he thought I'd done. "It's fine," he said tightly. "Here, let me." No, I've got it." I handed the clean glass to Margaret, who took it with a grateful smile. I held on to the doctored one. "Let's toast." Patrick was frozen. I could see the calculations running behind his eyes. If I'd really switched them, and he took the glass from me now, it would look suspicious. But if I drank from that glass, the one he thought was clean, there would be no effect, and his whole plan would fall apart. Unless he wasn't sure. Unless he thought maybe I hadn't switched them at all. "Patrick," I said mildly, "don't you have a glass for yourself?" He blinked, smiled, that same smooth smile that had fooled me for 8 years. Of course. He picked up another glass from the table. "Clean," I assumed. "Actually," I said, "since you organized this beautiful evening, why don't you use this one? The good stuff." I extended the doctored glass toward him. "I'll grab another." Patrick stared at me, really stared at me. And in that moment, he knew that I knew. "I couldn't," he said stiffly. "I insist." I pressed the glass into his hand, holding his gaze. "You've worked so hard on tonight. You deserve the best." Lisa was watching now, confused by the tension. "Patrick? What's going on?" "Nothing, sweetheart." Patrick's voice was strangled. "Just accepting your father's generous offer." He was trapped. If he refused, it would seem strange after he'd just made a whole speech about how much he'd done for us. If he accepted but didn't drink, same problem. And if he tried to switch the glass again, I'd call attention to it. He'd underestimated me. He'd seen a 73-year-old retired principal and assumed I'd be an easy mark. He'd forgotten that I'd spent 35 years outsmarting teenagers. "To Richard and Margaret," Patrick said, raising the glass. His hand was shaking. 50 beautiful years. The room raised their glasses. "To Richard and Margaret." Everyone drank, including Patrick. He didn't down it in one gulp like I'd seen in movies. He took a measured sip, his eyes never leaving mine. Then another, then a third. I didn't drink from mine. I set it down on the table quietly. We stood there, locked in a silent battle of wills while 300 people celebrated around us. 2 minutes passed. Patrick was looking nervous but trying to hide it. 5 minutes. He kept glancing toward the bathroom. 7 minutes. His face was flushed. He was sweating. Patrick? Lisa touched his arm. Are you okay? You look pale. I'm fine, he said, but his words were slightly slurred. Just warm in here. 10 minutes. His pupils were dilated. He swayed slightly. Patrick! Lisa's voice rose in alarm. Honey, what's wrong? I don't. I feel. Patrick looked genuinely confused now, frightened. What did you do? This last part was directed at me, barely a whisper. Me? I said calmly. I gave you a glass of champagne, the one you wanted me to drink. His face went white as understanding hit. Then his knees buckled. The room erupted in chaos. People screaming. Someone calling 911. Lisa was crying, holding Emma, trying to reach Patrick as he collapsed onto the floor. Margaret was gripping my arm, asking what was happening. I pulled out my phone and dialed Tom. Now, I said simply. Within 30 seconds, Tom was in the ballroom, followed by 2 off-duty police officers I'd asked him to bring as backup. Tom went straight to Patrick's jacket, pulling out the small vial I'd seen earlier. He held it up carefully with a handkerchief. What is that? Lisa screamed. What's going on? One of the officers was already calling for an ambulance, checking Patrick's vitals. He's breathing. Pulse is weak. Sir, what did he take? I don't know, I said, but I'd suggest you check that vial. I suspect it's some kind of sedative or drug meant to cause confusion and disorientation. Everyone was staring at me now. Margaret, Lisa, Michael, and Jennifer. 300 guests. Richard, Margaret whispered. What are you saying? I pulled the tiny recording device from my lapel and held it up. I'm saying that for the past 6 months, I've had reason to believe Patrick was planning something. Tom here has been helping me document it. That vial came from Patrick's pocket. He put something from it into 2 champagne glasses, the ones he specifically gave to Margaret and me. I switched glasses with him. He drank from the one he'd doctored. Lisa's face was crumpling. No, Dad, that's crazy. Patrick would never. Lisa, honey, I'm so sorry. My voice broke. But I have evidence. Audio recordings, background checks, everything. Patrick was going to drug me, maybe both of us, to make us seem incompetent. Then he and his mother were going to push through some kind of guardianship or estate control. The documents he tried to present tonight are likely part of that plan. You're lying, Lisa shrieked. You never liked him. You're sabotaging my marriage. One of the officers picked up the envelope Patrick had tried to give me, scanning the documents quickly. His expression darkened. Sir, these appear to be emergency conservatorship papers, already filled out. They just need signatures. The room went silent, except for Lisa's sobbing. Patrick was being loaded onto a stretcher now, barely conscious. As the paramedics wheeled him past, his eyes found mine. There was hate there, pure and venomous. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt sick, because standing across from me, holding her baby, was my daughter. And she looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was a monster. How could you? She whispered. How could you do this to him? To me? To Emma? Lisa. No. She backed away. You poisoned my husband. In front of everyone. You planned this. You're just a bitter old man who can't stand that someone else might care about your precious estate. Lisa, he was going to hurt us. He was going to take everything. Get away from me. She ran out of the ballroom, Emma crying in her arms. I tried to follow, but Margaret pulled me back. She was crying too, but her grip was firm. Let her go, she said softly. Richard, let her go. The police wanted statements. The guests were ushering themselves out, some offering support, others looking at me with suspicion or horror. The party I dreaded had turned into exactly what Patrick wanted, a public disaster, just not the way he'd planned. Tom stayed with me through it all, providing his documentation to the police. The vial tested positive for rohypnol mixed with a sedative. Enough to cause serious confusion and disorientation, but not enough to be fatal. Enough to make me seem like I was losing my mind. Patrick recovered within a few hours at the hospital. The police arrested him there. His mother, Diane, Was arrested the next day. Her apartment contained detailed plans, additional forged documents, and email exchanges between her and Patrick discussing the project. It all came out in the investigation. Patrick had huge gambling debts. He'd already stolen from client accounts, and his firm was closing in. He needed money fast, and Lisa had told him about our estate. It started as a fantasy, became a possibility, and finally evolved into this elaborate plan. Lisa had known about his debts. She'd known he was desperate, but she screamed, actually, when the police interviewed her, that she had no idea about the drugging or the conservatorship plan. She thought Patrick was just going to convince us to give them money, to invest in a business venture. She'd been complicit in the manipulation, but not the crime. The DA believed her. They didn't press charges against Lisa, but that didn't matter to our relationship. It was already destroyed. She sent me one text message after the arrests. "I will never forgive you for what you did to Patrick. You stole Emma's father from her. Stay away from us." And she meant it. That was 4 months ago. Margaret and I moved out of Portland 6 weeks later. We couldn't stay in that house, in that city, where every corner reminded us of what we'd lost. We bought a small place on the Oregon coast, near Cannon Beach. It's quiet here, just the sound of waves and seagulls. Margaret struggles sometimes. She understands intellectually why I did what I did, but emotionally, she's grieving the loss of our daughter and granddaughter. Some days, she looks at me like she's not sure it was worth it. Some days, I'm not sure either. Michael and Jennifer still talk to us. They've tried to reach out to Lisa, tried to mediate, but she won't listen. She's hired a lawyer and blocked us from all contact with Emma. We've considered suing for grandparents' rights, but our attorney says it would only make things worse. Patrick pled guilty to attempted assault with intent to defraud. He got 18 months, eligible for parole in 9. His mother got probation and lost her paralegal license. My attorney assures me our estate is protected. All the documents they'd forged are voided, and there's no way they can come after us legally. But that's not what keeps me up at night. What keeps me up is the image of Lisa's face in that ballroom, the betrayal in her eyes, the way she looked at me like I was the villain. What keeps me up is wondering if I could have handled it differently, if I could have confronted Patrick privately, if I could have tried to save my daughter from him instead of exposing him in front of 300 people. What keeps me up is the fact that I'm sitting here in this beautiful house on the coast, watching the sunset with my wife of 50 years, and I should be grateful that I still have her, still have my estate, still have 2 out of 3 children who love me. But all I can think about is the granddaughter I've never held since that night, the daughter who won't answer my calls, the family I destroyed to save. Tom says I did the right thing. He says Patrick would have escalated if I hadn't stopped him. He says some people can't be reasoned with, only exposed. My attorney says I should count my blessings. I prevented a crime. I protected my wife. I maintained my autonomy and dignity. Margaret says she doesn't know. She holds my hand on the porch some evenings, watching the waves, and says she doesn't know if any of this was worth it. I received a letter last week, forwarded from our old address. Lisa's handwriting on the envelope. My hands shook when I opened it. Inside was a single photo. Emma, 4 months older than the last time I saw her. She's smiling in the picture, sitting up on her own, wearing a little yellow dress. On the back, Lisa had written, "This is what you lost. I hope you're happy with what you saved." No other words. No return address. I keep that photo in my desk drawer. Some days I take it out and just stare at it. This granddaughter I'll probably never know. This relationship that was destroyed before it could even really begin. And I ask myself the question I've been asking since that night in September. Did I make the right choice? I protected my estate. I exposed a criminal. I prevented what could have been a disaster that would have left Margaret and me powerless, confused, possibly even institutionalized, while Patrick drained everything we'd spent 50 years building. But I lost my daughter, and my granddaughter, and maybe some part of Margaret's trust in me, though she'd never admit it. Was it worth it? I wish I could tell you the answer. I wish I could stand here and say with certainty that justice was served and everything worked out the way it should. But the truth is, I don't know. All I know is that I'm 73 years old. I spent 35 years trying to teach young people how to think critically, how to stand up for themselves, how to recognize manipulation. And when it came to my own family, I couldn't save my daughter from the manipulator. I could only save myself. Margaret just called me in for dinner. We're having salmon tonight, caught fresh this morning from a local fisherman we've befriended. We'll eat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky orange and pink and gold. We'll talk about safe things, the weather, the garden we're planning to plant. Maybe we'll discuss Michael's upcoming visit. We won't talk about Lisa, or Emma, or Patrick, or the anniversary party that should have been a celebration but became a crime scene. We've learned not to talk about those things, but they're there, in every silence between us, in every sunset we watch, in every moment we should be happy but can't quite get there. I did what I thought was right. I protected what was mine. I exposed a threat, and it cost me everything I actually cared about protecting. So if you're watching this, and you find yourself in a similar situation, if you suspect someone you love is being manipulated or is manipulating you, I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you there's a right answer. All I can tell you is what I learned. Sometimes you win the battle and lose the war. Sometimes protecting yourself means destroying what you were trying to protect. Sometimes the only way to save your assets is to lose your family. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm sitting on this porch, listening to the waves, I wonder if maybe Patrick won, after all. Because he took the one thing I cared about more than any estate, any house, any amount of money. He took my daughter, and no legal victory can ever bring her back. The sunset tonight is beautiful. Margaret thinks we should take a photo to send to Michael. I'll smile for the camera, and it will look like we're happy, like we're living our best retirement years by the beach. And maybe someday that won't be a lie. But tonight, like every night, I'll go to bed knowing I did the right thing. I'll just never know if it was worth it.